What's up, SnowTrax Nation? I am here in Sherbrooke, Quebec at Skidoo's training facility, and I'm going to be joined by Skidoo Product Manager Vincent Deschenes and Engineering Project Manager Etienne Girard to get some answers to questions that we have and some questions that you've submitted about 2025's most exciting models. On deck is the 2025 MXZ X-RS 850 Turbo Comp Package. Let's get started. The XRS comp package, especially the turbo, is the absolute pinnacle of high-performance Skidoo snowmobiles. There is nothing higher. It is designed for the most aggressive rider out there, and it's a very impressive snowmobile. Why don't you give me just a quick overview of what is a comp package and how does the turbo fit into that?
Yeah, well, obviously it's in the MXZ family, which is a trail sled, and you know, this is meant for aggressive trail riding. In our lineup, we have, let's say, a good, better, best approach. This could be called the ultimate one.
Above best.
Yeah, exactly. So the comp package was born on races, cross-country races, such as the Iron Dog. At first, they were only available with the 600R E-TEC. And last year, in 2024, we brought the 850 E-TEC Turbo R in that package. So this is the ultimate trail performance sled. Few differences versus the regular XRS. So we have a specific rear suspension that is reinforced on that one, fourth wheel at the back, reinforced tubing and stuff like that. Two-ply track. So this is the only sled in our lineup with a two-ply track meant for ultra-aggressive riding. And then we have few things here and there that are very specific to the competition package to make it the ultimate trail performance sled.
To take it to the next level.
Exactly.
So give me an overview of the type of rider and the type of conditions that this is perfect for and perfect in.
Well, obviously trail riding, but not the perfectly groomed trails. So the ones that are pushing the boundaries in trail riding. So it could be ditch banging, but also, as I said, cross-country riding. So meant to go in trails that are not always in perfect conditions. Big bumps, most aggressive riders, the one that really are active riders on the sled, so that moves around, that likes the ultimate setup for the one that finish their ride and they're all sweaty at the end. These are the kind of riders that are meant for the competition package.
I would like to think that I'm a rider who's meant for the competition package, but I think the truth is I'm probably one level below that. There aren't too many people, but anyone can have one, so that's a good thing. Whatever your mind tells you that you are. This season, this model comes with Smart Shox, and we're going to talk about that a little later, but there's another big change this season to this model, many models, but this model in particular, and that is the RAS RX front suspension and the new ski. Let's talk a little bit about what is RAS RX? What does it consist of, and how did you get there?
Well, the first thing we wanted to achieve for sure is to increase the capacity of the suspension. We wanted to have, let's say, also a flatter vehicle on the cornering. So we wanted to have a predictable vehicle, something that would be very good in different type of condition in the corner. So we decided to try, let's say, the front end of a racing sled on this actual package. We did this maybe 3-4 years ago. Obviously, the feeling was quite good. It was really harsh because there's a lot of capacity in a racing sled, but there's no comfort. It's very difficult to steer, so we had to manage that. So we decided to tweak it a little bit, and then we come up last year with something, let's say, that is race-inspired. So we have, let's say, more capacity, so more stroke on the front suspension. We have also something that we feel it's more comfortable. It has less roll. So the roll, you know what it is. So at one point when you go into a corner, the vehicle wants to roll on itself.
Body roll, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we want to reduce that to have it flatter. So that's what we change, and it's slight changes in the geometry to make that. And
so to get it to corner flatter, you didn't just go with a stiffer sway bar.
No.
You've actually done that through geometrical changes in the front suspension.
Yeah, sure. We make the spindle taller, so we change the geometry of the A-arm. Like you said, we change also the sway bar. The old sway bar on the RAS X was rising, so it was softer at the beginning, and then it was feeling stiffer at the end. We do it all the way around for this one, so it's stiffer when you start cornering, so it will get the sled flatter. And then when you go into big bumps, it will be lighter.
So it's actually a falling rate sway bar.
That's it.
Interesting, okay.
And then for the rest of the geometry, the A-arm, obviously, all the contact point on the chassis, we didn't change that, so we didn't want to do our overhaul of the sled. So we had some constraints, so manufacturing constraint also on that one. So the width, it needs to fit into a box, a shipping box. And it needs to fit into the assembly line also. So we have this constraint, and we have, let's say, Vincent's constraint to say it needs to achieve that, and that the customer wants really to achieve this type of cornering. So with all this feature in mind, the engineer, they designed this specific geometry.
So how closely related are these parts to the RS race sled?
Actually, some key part of the geometry are related. Let's say the trailing. So the trailing is where the boat sits into the kingpin axle. So we have the same dimension as the racing. So it sits further back, let's say. So it gives more stability when you go into big bumps. So the ski wants to stay straight. That obviously has a drawback on the steering effort, so that's why we changed the steering ratio also to make it more, let's say, easy on the arm. So that's, let's say, the main feature we took from racing, but the taller spindle also, not the same height, but the same, let's say, logic would apply.
So it's not the same parts as on the race sled, but it was the general concept of the race sled and how that worked that we've got here. So racing inspired is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it.
Let's talk a little bit about that steering that you're talking about, the steering ratio, because I don't think that's something that people understand really well. You've got linear, which means for 1 inch of bar movement, you get 1 inch of steering movement, but that's not how this works.
Well, this one is slightly below what we have on the old RAS X. This one, the ski, let's say, at the end of the handlebar, let's say we push it until the end, the ski turns slightly less than the old one. And we could, let's say, change the ratio to make it really, really soft on the arm, but then the ski won't turn almost nothing.
Right.
And then if we keep it the way it was meant, what's in the race inspired, you would steer, and then the ski would steer really a huge amount, but again, it will be really hard on the arm. So you need to find a sweet balance in between that. So it's really, really close to what we have on the RAS X, I would say. Yeah.
It's safe to say it's not linear, though. It's not a one-to-one. It does have kind of a curve to it.
Yeah, it's not linear, but it's close to linear, I would say. Yeah.
Interesting. One of the major components of the RAS RX front suspension is obviously the ski. Yeah. This is not the same ski as what you found on your 2024, 2023 models. What is the background behind the ski? Where did the ski come from?
Well, during the development process, as Etienne explained, we started with the RAS RS front suspension, and then we saw a good potential there. So we started to work on the front suspension, and at the same time, we had a request from the market, as well from you guys, from the media, to have a ski that would be more performing into softer snow conditions. Because our Pilot X that we have right now is really, really good on groomed trail, but when there's, let's say, a little snowfall, it would tend to push a little bit in corners. So we wanted to have something that is really meant for cross-country type of riding, so as the competition package is meant for. So based on that, we start to work on the Pilot RX ski that goes along with the front suspension to have really something that works much better in various snow conditions, but especially in softer snow conditions.
So it's a wider range of conditions that this ski performs really, really well in.
Exactly. It's a bit more aggressive ski, so it fits with the MXZ DNA of trail riding. But it's, as I said, really performing in softer snow conditions. Yeah, that's the main benefit of it.
So what is different? What is the design of this ski that makes it work in multiple conditions like that?
That's a two-step keel design that we call. So the first keel, so the lowest one, is the one that works really on the groomed trail, hard-packed snow. Mm-hmm. So a bit like we would get with a regular trail ski, sorry. And the second keel, that's the largest one, the higher one, that's where it comes into play where there's softer snow. So both together then works to have a much more lateral surface to to have more traction in cornering.
Great. There's also something different with this ski about the carbides, isn't there? There's a new carbide design that goes on this ski.
In fact, with the ski that is much more aggressive, we could reduce the aggressivity of the carbide to have something a bit more balanced and easier on the arm of the rider. So we really wanted to make sure that the rider don't feel exhaust at the end of the ride. So we looked at every possibility and found out that we could go a bit more, let's say, softer on the carbide side.
So we want them to be sweating at the end of the ride, but not because steering was so heavy.
Exactly.
Let's talk about how the ski and the front suspension work together. One without the other. You've got some models that don't have both, but they really were designed to work together. How did that come about? How did you fit those two pieces in the design process?
Yeah, well, we look at our customer profile. Obviously, on the spring models, these are usually our more aggressive riders, the more active ones. So we put the whole package on it. So RAS RX, Pilot RX, together they work really good. But we also tried the RAS RX with the Pilot X and put that on our in-season models. And we feel that's still a very good combination where people will get satisfied with what they get. Obviously, a bit less aggressive steering because of the regular Pilot X ski with that combo, but still a very high-performance trail sled.
So you still get the benefits of the geometry change in the front end with the front suspension and the trailing spindle and all of that, but not quite as aggressive steering with the older generation ski.
Yeah, well explained. Yeah.
So let's go over sort of the three main goals for the RAS RX. And there was three main goals, and you achieved it sort of in four different areas, as far as I can tell. I mean, your three main goals are improving cornering stability and predictability. The second one is more cornering precision. And then, of course, we've talked a little bit about this, more suspension capacity, more travel, more ability to soak up bigger bumps. So how did you achieve that in specific? Like, what did you do to the front suspension to make that work?
Let's say for the cornering part, we want to reduce the roll. So we did that by changing the full geometry of the A-arm, obviously. The sway bar helps also to reduce the roll. And then if we change also the chock angle to help to minimize the roll also. For the capacity, obviously, it's stroke. So we increase the stroke on the chock. So we give a few millimeter there in the chock that gives a 14 millimeter more stroke on the ski.
So the shock is physically longer?
No, the chock is not longer. Okay. It's internally. So we did it internally. So the full length chock is the same. It's internal. So at the bottom end, it has more stroke.
Interesting.
And then for the precision, we change the geometry of the trailing, like I said. So we put the ski backward a bit, so that helps to more precision in the bumps. And capacity, like I said, is chock.
So there's some things about this that you kind of have to look for. The shock is actually not mounted the same way on the lower A-arm than the older RAS X version, is it?
No, it's a little bit outward. So the way, let's say, instead of being, let's say, more straight up there, it's more angled. So it gives more force to reduce the roll. So that
was a roll thing, to move the shocks out. Wasn't a plushness of ride. It was actually helping with body roll.
Well, obviously, with more stroke, you can get a plusher ride. Let's say if we can increase the stroke by, I don't know, 5-6 inches, you would get a plusher ride. But that's
we
physically,
can only dream.
Yeah, maybe one day, but not yet.
Now, there's something, when you talk about roll, there's some interesting sort of geometrical things that happen there as far as roll center and center of gravity and how those two things work together. So can you explain as best you can how roll center and center of gravity are related to each other?
I'll try to make it simple. So the center of gravity, obviously, people know it's like a theoretical point in the space where all the masses get equilibrate, they equalize each other. And then the roll center point is the theoretical point where it pivots, the vehicle pivots when it enters a corner. So if you get them closer together, it reduces the lever. So the moment that you get at the roll center should be lower. So it would take more effort to push the vehicle on the roll side. So that's That's the goal, to reduce the distance in between these two
So the
points.
distance in between the two is more important than where the two are in terms of height. That's probably also important, but having them close together is more important?
Yeah, I think it's more important to get them close together.
Okay. Did you manage to lower those points in this model, in this update?
No, the center of gravity is the same.
It's
obviously.
the same.
So we get the same ride height, so the same vehicle height. But we just, by changing the geometry, the point where the vehicle rolls as getting up a bit, so closer to the center of gravity.
Well, my experience riding this is it's pretty dramatic how that affects things. It corners very flat and doesn't roll up on one ski almost ever. It's very, very impressive how you've come about that. So that's pretty interesting stuff.
And that's always good to see when we do some theoretical stuff to make it on the vehicle and we can see the benefits. So that's a huge plus for us.
Can you just go into your software and move those little dots around and bring them together and then see how that would work? I mean, do you ever just play with that for fun?
Yeah, that's easy like that. So we can. Now, obviously, there's a lot of key points that we need to take into account. Obviously, all the ball joint point, where we put the ski, where we put all the attachment point. And there's a lot of each millimeter that we move at one point affects something else. So it's all connected levers. So we need to balance everything all the time. So we do simulation, we go on the snow, and then on the snow we validate that it's the same at what we saw on the software. So if yes, then we can continue that route. If not, we need to
start all over.
Yeah, start all over. Yeah, that's it. So we do a lot of validation on the snow to correlate with what we see on the software.
So when we talk about suspension capacity, that's one of those words that probably means something to you, but sometimes doesn't translate to everybody else. When we talk about capacity, for us, that oftentimes means distance of travel or amount of suspension travel. Would that be correct?
Yeah, the capacity is measured by the distance the ski is traveling up in the air. Let's say when you go into a bump. Because of the geometry, it's not the same stroke as what we have on the Shox. So there's a ratio there. So what we have on our side is 11 inch of a stroke right now. So we up by 14 millimeter what we add on the RAS RX. So now it's 11 inch. So this is the industry's best capacity front suspension.
The most travel in the industry now.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just geometry and steering. You've also gained suspension travel. And I mean, more travel's almost always better.
Yeah, travel is always good. That's why we had to bend the A-arm also to clear all the body parts, because at one point we had so much travel that we need to clear everything inside the geometry.
Without having to redesign the whole body of the sled.
Yeah, we could have done that, but I mean, that's...
And that plays into what you said earlier about how without redesigning a whole new snowmobile, you had some constraints to work within. Yeah. And I always find that amazing when you're working with something that's already there, how you can, like you said, adjust those millimeters here and there and have something that handles so completely different just by adjusting millimeters within the confines of what you already had. And it's quite a drastic change, I must say. It really is different. It might look very similar, but it doesn't feel similar when you're on the trail. So obviously, this is a big update for model year 2025, and anybody who has a 2025 model with RAS RX is going to be super pumped about that. They're getting a lot of benefits over the 2024 and 2023 models. I mean, I find this very interesting. You guys care about not just your current customers, we talked about this earlier, but you care about your customers past as well. And I think it's very interesting that you've offered the RAS RX front suspension setup as an accessory kit to add to any narrow body two-stroke 2023 or 2024 model MXZ.
We wanted to make sure that these consumers could get the latest and greatest front suspension from our side to upgrade their sleds and get the most performance out of it. The only difference between, let's say, the accessory kit that we're providing is that you're keeping your own shocks, so you won't get the full benefit of the factory settings with the new shocks that offers more travel, obviously. But so offering that kit for a good price point allows people to upgrade their sleds. A lot of them haven't ridden much last season because of the snow conditions, so they're now being able to update their sleds with the latest and greatest from Ski-Doo.
Will you tell me about what does that kit entail and why do that?
Yeah, well, the kit comes with the hay arm, obviously, the spindle, and the sway bar. So, and as we explained earlier, we had those curved A-arm to clear the bodyworks. So with that kit, having the same bodywork as our generic Gen 5 models, you don't have to change all the bodywork and stuff like that. So that's good. And the main benefits of that kit is obviously as the Raz RX having the better cornering, so more stable, more predictable cornering. You as well get the precision in big bumps, but you won't get the benefit of the additional suspension stroke. But still, I mean, Raz RX shocks are the second best in the industry behind the Raz RX front suspension. So you still get a very good suspension capacity, but not the exact same one as the factory-built Raz RX.
So you get all the handling benefits and the big bump ride benefits straight in the bumps, doesn't feel nervous. You get all of that with the upgrade. The only thing you're missing out on is a little bit of travel, but honestly, that's a nice thing to have, but it's not absolutely paramount to get the other benefits, so that's fantastic. The ski as well is an available kit which you can add to any of the 25 models that don't come with it, but you can also add it to the 23, 24s. If you do the upgrade kit, you can do the ski at the same time. It'll work without the ski, but it's better with the ski if that's what you're going to do the whole kit. It's sort of how I would look at it.
Yeah, even the ski, I mean, it could fit on every model from our lineup pretty much. The spindles and the fitting is all pretty much all the same. So that's
depending on your riding style.
Yeah.
So that's...
Yeah, you want to make sure that if you get that ski, you're looking for an aggressive trail ride. If you're more, let's say, cruising, looking for the landscape and everything, that might not be the specific ski for your needs. But for those guys that really want to push the boundaries and ride aggressively, that ski bring a next level performance.
I was really impressed as well with the price of the upgrade kit, and you can check the description in this video for more specifics on the price. But I was shocked, honestly. For the amount of money it costs to upgrade to the Raz RX front suspension, anyone who is thinking about it is crazy not to do it. It's just such a great deal. And the suspension handling, precision benefits are all well worth it. After my time on the snow with the Raz RX, it's the first thing I do. And I wouldn't even let my sled hit the snow in 2025 without that front suspension. So pretty impressive that you're taking care of customers, previous customers, as well as the new ones, and offering that as an upgrade. That's not something I think I've ever seen before. So it's really interesting and really cool. And yeah, if you're a 2023, 2024 MXZ owner, go pick up your kit because you won't regret it.
We know that last winter there wasn't a lot of snow. Some people didn't even ride, so they'll keep their older models. So that allows them to upgrade their sled to the latest and greatest from Ski-Doo.
The MXZ X-RS competition package with the turbo, this is actually a very interesting sled because it's got the horsepower of a lake racer, but it's got the chassis of a ditch banger. So describe for me, first of all, sort of how that package is unique. And then I'd also like to know, how was the turbo received last year? How did it do? Were people happy with it? Did it live up to your expectations and customer expectations?
Yeah, well, the reception was very good. When we were at Club launching the product, we were already having feedback from dealers that were already selling their units, and the first year we were limited on quantities. Those flied away quite fast, and that's the reason why we're offering more options even this year on the competition package with the 850 E-TEC Turbo R. So now available with Smart Shox and as well as the black collar. So people wanted a bit more customization options. So yeah, the popularity of the 850 E-TEC Turbo is very, very good. And as you said, it's not only about lake crossing, racing down the trail. It's also a very high performance ditch banger that can do it all at a very high level as well.
Which for high horsepower sleds is unique because so many high horsepower sleds are designed specifically to go fast in a straight line. Some of them even have reduced travel or altered ergonomics to make it faster in a straight line. But then when you get on that tight trail, it becomes a beast to handle. It doesn't handle as good, doesn't ride as well. But that's not what the comp package turbo is. This is a do-it-all, beat everybody down the lake, and then hit the trail and beat them there too kind of sled. Yeah,
the turbo delivery or the power delivery is very seamless, so it's easy to manage. It's not something that will hit you late in the throttle feel. So personally, I just love to ride it. It's so good and it's so performant. there's nothing better.
Not a light switch. It's very smooth in power delivery, not on off like a lot of turbos are, which I agree is, you ride a lot of these high performance sleds and it's like they hit a point and all of a sudden they just take off. And if you get that mid corner, you don't know where you're going to end up. But with this one, I often said you could ride this with one hand and it just is so easy to ride. So that's excellent. I think it's very interesting that it is pretty much the only sled in the industry that does horsepower and big bump capability and handling the way it does. So big kudos to Ski-Doo for answering a lot of questions that people did have. So that was really, really good. So now we get to answer a viewer question. I love these because they oftentimes think about things, not oftentimes, most of the time think about things that I don't think about. And it's sometimes the most interesting things they come up with they want to know. So this one is from Neil Owen, and he wants to know, is there a difference between clutching on a naturally aspirated 850 versus the turbo because of launch mode? To accommodate launch mode, do you have to clutch it differently?
For sure, we need to clutch it differently. First, because of the engagement, we need to rev a little bit higher to get more boost. And we don't want to engage, so we need to do that. And also the 15 horsepower additional that we have on the turbo, so we have a different ramp angle. So that's two different clutching.
So they are different, and there's two differences specifically, but they're for two different purposes.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Vincent and Etienne. That was very, very informative. You answered all of my questions and then some, but we do have some more questions about Smart Shox. And to get those answers, we're going to bring in Pascal Gagnon, who is your vehicle dynamics specialist, and he's coming up right in just a minute. Welcome, Pascal. Thank you for joining us. The first thing I want to know is, what is a vehicle dynamics specialist? What does that mean and what do you do?
In fact, vehicle dynamics specialist is a very, very nice job. I think it's the nicest job possible in that company. To resume it in a few words, my job is to make the vehicle a better ride. To ensure our customer is enjoying their ride. So I have to put my place in every customer for every segment, of course, and make sure I have fun to ride that sled.
So you get to ride snowmobiles and determine whether or not they ride smooth enough.
Exactly.
And then take feedback from customers and then go back and ride more snowmobiles and see if they're right or wrong.
Exact. So to get the customer feedback is also very important. So I have to get feedback from our internal channel, and as well as discussion with friends, media guys. But I have a lot of opportunity also to meet much very wide brand of customers.
That sounds terrible. So we're here to talk about Smart Shox, and Smart Shox are back for 2025. We're very glad about that. We're very pleased that the competition package has Smart Shox on it. It works really, really well. But we'd like to understand Smart Shox a little bit better. How do they work? Why are they designed the way they are? How are they different from what else is in the industry right now? But the first thing I want to know is, for 25, has there been any changes made? You've got the RAS RX front suspension. Has there been any changes made to the Smart Shox system, particularly on the comp package, to accommodate for that?
Basically, since the RAS RX came after the Smart Shox, we had the opportunity to fine-tune all the position on the arm to fit our actual sensor geometry. So obviously, we fine-tuned the front-end calibration of the Smart Shox for the RAS RX, but we did not have to make huge review of the calibration for the RAS RX. Since we introduced that technology in model year 22, model year 22 was the introduction year. We got few feedback from customer, from media, from all different people. We've done some adjustment between 22 and 23, and refinement again from 24 to 25 with the RAS RX.
So you got it sorted out between 22 and 24. You've done minor adjustments here and there, some bigger ones, smaller ones, and got it to where you want it, and just minor stuff for 25 because it was already working really, really well.
Exact.
Excellent. Let's talk a little bit about how Smart Shox works. So Tell me about the system as a whole. How does it all work together?
The Smart Shox is a very old project that is started many years ago, more than 10 years ago at Ski-Doo Engineering. And our main focus was to improve performance and comfort. To do so, we choose with our partner KYB a twin tube design which allow us to adjust the damping not only in compression but also in rebound, which help us a lot to improve the comfort in certain conditions. And with that twin tube design, we had the opportunity to have a very wide range of adjustment in both directions. To do so, it's very important to have position sensor, and we need to know at all time the exact shock speed, shock direction, shock acceleration, and position, as well as the rail. We have two position sensors for the front arm and the rear arm of the rear skid. So, and with this, those sensors can feed information to SDCU to have the exact speed, position, direction, and rail angle compared to the chassis.
Interesting. I didn't realize that about the skid frame, that you're actually measuring rail angle, but it makes a lot of sense for acceleration and braking and all sorts of situations.
Exact.
And so how fast can the system take information from those sensors and then do its thing in the brain and then send it back out to the shocks? How long does that take?
Well, the main topics about the semi-active suspension speed is the shock reaction, because the computers are so fast now, so they can react 1,000 times per second. However, the slower thing is always the shock valve itself, because physically we have to move a little solenoid to restrict or open the oil passage. And this shock reaction time is between, in our KYB system, is between 20 milliseconds to 34 milliseconds, depending of the shock direction, compression, rebound, if you increase the damping or reduce the damping. This is where you need to be efficient and have a good performance and a good response. We have also a very good, very fast stability system due to our steering angle sensor. Our stability system is working with, we calculate the lateral G-force with the steering angle and the vehicle speed. So when you enter into a corner, the first thing before the vehicle starts to turn itself, the rider has to turn the steering. That's the first thing. Few milliseconds before the vehicle already start to turn. So already before the vehicle start to turn, our SDCU is having the information that we're gonna turn. We have to stiffen the external shock to keep the vehicle very flat. And that's a key feature of having a good stability system. It's to be able to react fast enough before the vehicle starts to lean.
So you've got the sensor telling the ECU that it's starting to turn, and then the other sensors kick in and say how hard are you turning and how sharp are you turning, and then it adjusts even further. So it starts the adjustment, but then tweaks it based on the other sensors' input.
Since a semi-active system is reactive only on speed, we cannot readjust the preload of the shock. The weight disposition of the sled is regulated by spring. Our springs are not actuated, so we have to react on shock speed. So in terms of stability, we have to react very soon in the process to prevent the shock to collapse, because if you leave the shock already start to collapse, it's already too late. You cannot push it back.
Right.
You have to react.
That's very interesting. I actually never thought about it from that perspective.
Yes.
But yeah, you can't push the shock back out.
No.
So you have to start before it actually compresses.
Exact.
Interesting.
And This is where we have an advantage with our steering angle system, because we are able to react sooner in the process for the stability than any system working with the IMU.
Very interesting. Why do you only use the 3 shocks, the front and the rear arm?
This is a very precise and high technology system. We have tried every setup in the past, but since the introduction many years ago of the first arm motion, let's say 2011, we focus our dynamics to add more authority or more capacity to the rear shock, because our rear shock is having a very progressive rising rate, and this is very efficient. If we compare to the center shock is a falling rate. Like every design of the last year, every competition is having a falling rate motion ratio, which is not as efficient in terms of damping and capacity. So to reduce the amount of part, energy, and we test it, and we evaluate that it was way more efficient to put everything on the rear shock. And since a semi-active system is not interacting with the weight distribution, you cannot change the weight distribution. So even with a center shock semi-active, you cannot change the ski pressure or anything. And for the bump absorption, everything is done via the rear shock.
Very interesting.
Because it's way more efficient.
Interesting. I would have thought the opposite, but when you describe falling and rising rate, it starts to make a lot of sense why that shock is the premier shock to be concerned about in the skid frame. Very interesting. So talk to me a little bit about how your system is different from what else is out there.
Because we can regulate compression and rebound, we can focus not only on performance, but also in comfort. So we can improve both. By knowing the position and the direction of the shock, we have a very accurate knowledge. Our SDCU have the feedback in each and every time. Where is the shock? Which direction is it going? Or which impact is it's feeling? So we can react very fast, and not only from the feedback of the vehicle behavior via IMU, but we can feel exactly what the terrain is pushing to the shock.
So would you say that your system is a sensor-based system and the competition is an IMU-based system?
Yes, we
and
can say
that's the big difference.
That's the big difference.
Okay, so you're not sensing movement of the vehicle, you're sensing physical movement of the suspension components.
Yes, and when it comes to, let's say, the stability in curve, we can react sooner, because the first interaction happening is the driver has to turn the steering.
Yep.
Before the vehicle even start to turn.
Very interesting.
This is the key feature. And it's way more accurate, and that's about the only way we can do it to control efficiently the rebound as well.
So it's not, I think there's misconceptions out there that maybe one is more sophisticated than the other, but the truth is there isn't one more sophisticated than the other. There's one that's more efficient perhaps than the other, and that's the way you go, is you choose the efficient one.
Yeah, you know, with all the new technology everywhere, IMU is not as magical as it was. It's not only for the NASA. Everybody is having an IMU in their pocket, in their cell phone. So IMU is it's something we test. This is something we validate. We build prototype with IMU and with steering angle system. We were able to compare the curve one-on-one on a graph, and obviously it was not a choice of saving money or complexity. It's not as easy, but the performance was our first goal.
Thank you very much, Pascal. That was extremely interesting and informative. You certainly answered some questions that I didn't even know I had. Very much appreciate that. Thank you also for watching. This video is on the MXZ X-RS 850 Turbo competition package with Smart Shox. I hope that this video was informative for you as it was for me, and make sure you stay tuned because this is just one of a 4-part video series. You're not going to want to miss the other 3. So make sure you subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any information.